So, Case 39 from 2009. I was talking to my sister a week or two ago, something like that, right after I saw Orphan First Kill. And I was talking to her about that movie. And she brought up this movie. And she said, what, when we were talking about like evil kid movies and everything. And she said, what about Case 39? Like, that was a good movie. I said, oh yeah, I haven't seen that in a while. Like, years and years, probably. And I said, yeah, that might be a good movie to rewatch, and decided tonight, fuck it, why not watch that? And this is a movie I don't really hear talked about anymore. Like, when it came out in 2009, I saw it in theaters, and I really enjoyed it. Now, the premise for this movie, there's not a lot of original ideas in this movie. Like, we've seen most of this before. I mean, there's heavy Omen vibes to this. There's very strong It and Pennywise vibes to this, and just feeding off people's fears and using it against them. So there's a lot of things in this movie that we've seen so many times before. But I don't know, for some reason this movie works for me. Like, I highly enjoyed this movie. Like, not a movie that I throw on too often, but a few years apart and having another rewatch of it, I enjoy it. And we have Renee Zellweger in here, which I pretty mixed on her. I mean, I think she's a great actress, but I never really cared too much for her. It depends what she's in and the role she's playing, but she does a great job in this. Like, she carries the movie pretty well. But Jadelle Ferlin, who plays Lily in this, she's been in some decent stuff. She was, and I just found out that she played Patience Buckner in The Cabin in the Woods, which I keep, every time I bring that movie up on this channel, I keep saying I gotta rewatch that and do that movie soon. And I definitely do, like, really soon, because I absolutely love The Cabin in the Woods. Such a good movie. We have Bradley Cooper in here, which he's fine in this. Like, I much prefer him in comedies than in dramas or horror movies or anything like that. But he's fine in here. He doesn't really have a big role or anything like that. If anything, I feel like he's in this movie, this character, just to have another death occur in this movie. He doesn't really play too much into the plot here. And we have Ian McShane in here, who I adore in everything I've seen him in. He's a great, great actor. I really love Ian McShane. And spoiler-free synopsis for people who haven't seen this, since, like I said, I don't really hear it talked about much anymore. But we have Emily, played by Renee Zellweger, who is a social worker who is swamped with 38 cases, and her boss ends up handing her a 39th case regarding this girl, Lily, a 10-year-old girl, who she suspects her parents are abusing or want to hurt in some way, and she starts investigating into it. And she ends up taking Lily in, and she ends up being not the little 10-year-old that Emily thinks that she is. And that's pretty much all you need going into this movie. But spoilers from here on. This movie should have been called, like, Emily's Last Case Ever. Because this woman, after what she goes through in this movie, she's never going near a fucking child again. Like, ever. Like, are you serious? After what she goes through in this movie with Lily? No. Like, she's quitting her job. She will never be a social worker again. She will never deal with a child again. And Lily even brings up near the end of the movie that that's why she never had kids, because Emily's mom had problems and died in an accident when she was young. And she was always afraid that if she had kids, that her mother's traits that might be inside of her would be passed down to her children. So she's never going near a child again after this movie, man. Like, absolutely not. And just, I like how they portray the parents at the beginning of this movie, the Sullivans, and just make them seem so creepy and insane, and that they're definitely abusing this kid. And then to have the little twist, you can't really even call it a twist, but just have it change to that they're not insane. That they're just drained, man. Like, after 10 years of dealing with their daughter who's a demon and killed most of their family. Like, the Mrs. Sullivan mentions that she had two sisters that were both killed by Lily. And the husband had three brothers or siblings or something like that, and they were all killed. And these people are just tired. They are drained of all emotion, of all energy, just everything. This demon child has taken absolutely everything from them that she could. And I like the way that they portray that in the beginning of this movie and make you kind of think that these people are fucking insane just to find out that they're not. I don't know. Really works for me. And I like Emily's line, like when she's goes over to the house for the first time and she's interviewing the Sullivans, and Mr. Sullivan won't speak directly to her. Like, he's just speaking into his wife's ear and she's answering the questions for him. Then when they go to the boss's office, Emily's boss's office, and then he's speaking all of a sudden, like a lot. And she has the line when she's like, Mr. Sullivan, like, since you've suddenly regained the ability to speak. Like, I like that line a lot. I crack up with that. Funny stuff. And just hearing a young girl, man, a 10-year-old girl, tell you that she heard her parents are going to send her to hell, that's fucked. Like, that is so hard. Like, I don't know what I'd do in that situation. If I heard a girl say that to me, a young girl like that her parents want to fucking send her to hell, I don't know what I'd do in that situation. Like, pretty much what Emily does, just get her the fuck out of there. Like, as soon as humanly possible. And Emily's a saint in this movie. She, like, should be Saint Teresa. Like, just to uproot her entire life. And like I said, of her never having children of her own and being scared of having children. And yeah, this isn't her biological daughter, of course, so she doesn't have to worry about her mother's issues and stuff passing on or anything like that. But just uprooting your whole life to take in a child from this seemingly sadistic parents that she has, that takes something, man. That takes some type of kindness and just a huge heart to do something like that. And I don't know the law on that. Like, I don't know if that would ever happen. If a social worker was working on a case, I mean, the boss mentions that, you know, you're going to have to drop the case because it's conflict of interest and everything. But would they let her take custody over this kid? I don't know the law on that. I don't know if that would actually happen. Seems a little far-fetched, but who knows? I mean, it's definitely possible, but I'm not sure. If anyone's a lawyer or some shit, let me know if that's something that can actually happen. That a social worker who's working on a case and rescues this kid from seemingly insane parents is able to take custody of that child. I mean, she goes through the whole board meeting and everything. They have to vote on it and stuff. But let me know if that's an actual thing, like if that can actually happen. Because every time I rewatch this, I think about that. And I say, yeah, I don't know if that would ever happen. But again, maybe it can. And Mike, who's the cop, friend of Emily, played by Ian McShane, great performance in this. Renee Zellweger, like I said, gives a good performance in this. Jadelle gives an amazing performance in this. Best performance in the movie as Lily. Like, she has just her ability to act like a sweet little girl and then just become creepier and creepier throughout the movie as the events unfold. She does a great job. Like, I love seeing her performance in this movie. And let's see here. When they show up to the Sullivans, Mike and Emily, and she hears Lily scream, and Mike doesn't hear it. He's like, I don't hear anything. And then she gets the tape, Lily rips it off her mouth while she's in the oven, which, that's such a fucked up situation, man. Busting into a house and finding a 10-year-old child duct tape into an oven that their parents are going to burn her alive. Man, like, fucking insane. Like, absolutely insane. And I love how Mike handles Mr. Sullivan. That he takes his head and just smashes it into the refrigerator and the dent that it leaves in the fridge. And when I first saw this, I said, they better show him like all fucked up in the next scene, because you see that dent in the fridge? Like, he slammed his head in there hard. And then we see them in the courtroom after that, and he has the whole fucking neck brace, cage, and shit around him, which reminds me of the aluminum monster from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. Like, aluminum monster, Fatty Magoo, Fatty Magoo. Fucking funny. And I love the line, because I say this a lot. I love Emily's line when they're walking out of court. And the parents are gonna go for, an insanity plea or something like that. And she says, what happened to just being bad people? Before everything had a diagnosis and a justification. She's right. Like, what happened to just plain old crazy? You don't hear that anymore. Everything is a fucking disorder. And like, I'm not knocking mental health. I mean, I've mentioned on here before, I deal with mental health issues for over half my life, with depression, anxiety. So I get it. But yeah, just like, what happened to just plain old crazy people? That there's no reason for it, there's no justification, they're just fucking nuts. You don't hear about that much anymore. There's always an explanation, there's always some type of thing wrong with them mentally that they try to explain away. Just, they're fucking nuts. These people are crazy. That's it. That's all you need. Like, fucking 50 years ago, that's all there really was. It was just crazy people. I don't know. It's something I think about and mention in conversations if that topic comes up all the time. And I love that line that she gives in here about that. And just the way that Lily worms her way into Emily's life and into her home and into her mind later as the movie keeps going on. I really enjoy that. Like, and just like the father says, Mr. Sullivan says when Emily goes to see him later, that she saw Emily coming from a mile away. And that this was basically all part of her plan, that she'll drain whoever she's with until there's nothing left and then move on to somebody else. And just the way that she plays off of Emily's generosity and her kindness and all of those traits about her. And like when she mentions to Lily that she's going to have to go to a home and everything. And her saying, like, why can't I live with you? And, they'd never allow that and all that. Like, just the way she just slowly inches her way into Emily's life and eventually into her home and being taken care of by her and having Emily take custody of her. Clever little stuff there. And let's see, the locks, the deadbolts on the parents' door when Emily goes to their house to get some of Lily's things and sees all the deadbolts on the inside of the door, and like the marks on the floor of the cabinet being pushed and the door like being just like dragged open. Cool stuff. But I'll tell you this, if I was in that situation, had 10 years of dealing with a demonic fucking child, my room would be like Fort Knox. Like, I would have fucking, like, stainless steel, fucking impenetrable doors, like, in my room, windows with fucking bars on them. Like, there would be no way anything's getting in my room, especially that fucking demonic child. Are you serious? After everything that we see in this movie, there's no way. I would have just the best security system in the room, fucking stainless steel doors, impenetrable windows, that there's no way she can get in, which we see later on that even that wouldn't really help in the situation. And then we have little Diego, who's another case of Emily's, who ends up getting a phone call at 2 a.m. from Lily, and he later says it was a man's voice, and that starts tipping Emily off that something is wrong with Lily and that the parents might not be as insane as she initially thought. And Diego ends up brutally murdering both his parents with a tire iron in their sleep and just fucking bludgeoning them to death. And just his reaction, like when Emily goes in to talk to Diego, and he just immediately bursts into tears and saying, I killed my parents. And that's fucking sad, man. Like, the fact that this kid he loved his parents, even though, he had family issues, and the father they mentioned has a history of violence and everything. But just the fact that he wasn't in control that he was being controlled by Lily and murdered both his parents. And now he has to fucking live with that. That's got to be so fucking hard, man, for a 10-year-old child to deal with the fact that he killed his parents but didn't really want to and doesn't know why he did. That's some scary shit. And I mentioned a little bit Emily's mother and everything, so no really need to go into that again, so moving on. And I like when Mike shows up at the house and talks to Lily about the phone call to Diego. And saying like, are you, it's hard to tell the truth sometimes, but I know you're a good girl and you'll do the right thing. And she's swearing up and down she didn't make the phone call. Then when Mike and Emily step outside, and he says they have a little conversation, and then right before he leaves, she's lying and just walks off. Something about that line, man, and just Ian McShane in general. Just like I said, I adore him. And Doug, like I said, Bradley Cooper's character in this, Doug, the whole little love interest between him and Emily doesn't really go anywhere or play into anything. Like, he's there, he's like a child psychologist or something, and he runs the groups for the kids. I feel, like I said, I feel like they have him in here just for another death. Like, he really doesn't play into anything else. They don't really have a relationship. Like, she's into him and he's really into her, but he knows that she's swamped with work and she doesn't really have time for a relationship. And that's basically all we get with his character. But he does have a pretty cool death scene, so I'm fine with it. And his little session with Lily by themselves, when she filled out the whole questionnaire and stuff of what she's afraid of. Are you afraid of the dark? And she answered no. And are you afraid of your parents? And she answered no. And she answered for no for everything on that questionnaire. And then asked her what is she afraid of? And just like I said, her acting in this is great, with her saying, I'll tell you what I'm scared of if you tell me what you're scared of. And then his whole story about being a kid and climbing a tree and sticking his arm into a hornet's nest by accident and got stung over 100 times, and he's been deathly afraid of hornets ever since. Cool stuff. And then the way that she just like flat out threatens him, like he says when he leaves. Like, and she answers the question, says what scares her, and she says herself, and that she has bad thoughts, and about people in general, or certain people like you. It's like, me? You have bad thoughts about me? Like, did I do anything wrong? And I love her line where she's like, it's just the way you are, like. And she calls him fatzel and smug, and he's like, you even know what that means? And she just like perfectly recites the definition of fatzel, like right out of a dictionary to him. Like, great scene. Then when she threatens him in the end, when she says, reads one of the questions back to him and says, are you worried about what's going to happen? And he says, do you want me to answer that? And he's like, no, that should be a yes. That's some creepy shit, man. Like, and him just walking out of there and talking to Emily and saying, like, I've talked to a lot of kids. I've never felt like that ever. Like, threatened. And I would feel the same way. Are you serious? Like, talking to that girl and having her just come out with the things that she says to him, I'd feel scared to death of this kid. Then we get his whole death scene with, I'll say this here with CGI, which I mention a decent amount on this channel, and how I've always been on the side of practical effects for the most part in horror movies. Now, when I've talked about that in the past, I say mostly specifically slasher films or body horror and those type of subgenres of horror. I feel practical is the way to go, always. If you need to touch it up with CGI, or if there's an impossible shot that you can't do practical, go ahead. Like, do whatever you got to do to get your vision on screen. These are one of the few subgenres of horror that I feel CGI I'm fine with. Like, any type of like demonic possession movie or ghost films or anything of supernatural sort, and because it's so hard to do practical effects for supernatural type movies. So, I mean, CGI is basically the direction that most directors go in that subgenre of horror. And if it's done well, I don't mind it one bit. And it's done pretty well here. Like, none of the CGI really takes me out of the film. Like, there's like one scene, like later in the movie, like almost near the end, like when Lily's saying, like, stop yelling at me, and her face distorts a little bit. Like, it's a little iffy, but again, it's like, how are you going to do a practical effect with that? I mean, you can, but with this type of movie and the subject matter and just the genre that this is in, they're going to use CGI, and it doesn't look terrible by any means. So none of the CGI in this movie gets really any complaint from me. Like, it doesn't. I'm indifferent on it. Doesn't look great, but it's not terrible or bad by any means at all. So I'm fine with it. Then we have his scene with after he gets the phone call from Lily, and I've never been scared of bugs or to fear of bugs or anything like that. But if I found a fucking wasp or a hornet or anything like that in my ear, I'd be freaking the fuck out. Like, immediately. Like, oh, I can't imagine that shit. And then him just being deathly afraid of hornets. Like, he kind of stupidly told Lily. I mean, he couldn't have known what she really is, obviously, but just the fact that he gets the pain in his ear and he runs into the bathroom with a Q-tip and he puts it in the ear and he pulls out the hornet on it, and just, you can see how fucking terrified he is. Like, he is fucking so scared of fucking hornets that this is like his fucking worst nightmare. And I forget if it's the mom or the dad of Lily that mentions it later. I think it's the dad that says, like, when Emily asks what she wants, and it's like, just to find out what your version of hell would be and make you live there. And that's exactly what she does. Like, this is his biggest fear, is hornets. And just having one come out of his ear. Then when more of them start appearing, and then when there's a whole, like, hundreds of them on the back of his shirt, and the way he has to slowly take his shirt off and wrap it around and throws it into the shower. Like, cool stuff. Like I said, like, the effects look fine in there. And then there's just hornets everywhere. They're here, there, and everywhere. Anyone gets that reference, I love you. And then I guess he just breaks his own neck. And then just like with the hornet coming out of his eye, and then out of his nose and stuff. Dude, can you imagine? Like, I mean, it's a hallucination, yeah. But that plays into, and I've said this on the channel before, mostly in my video for Great Encounters. My biggest fear in life, pretty much, is losing all touch with reality. Or having reality just shifting and changing all around you is terrifying to me. So just the fact of having hallucinations like that, and thinking that you're being attacked by hornets, or like Mrs. Sullivan later, that she feels like she's burning alive, that she's on fire, and just any of that is some terrifying shit. Like, it really gets to me. Like, the whole idea of just losing complete touch with reality is probably my number one fear. Then Mrs. Sullivan's interview that Emily's watching on the TV, when I guess she's being interrogated by one of the cops or something like that, or one of the workers in the asylum she's in, and her saying about Lily being a demon or evil incarnate or whatever you want to call it, and then mentions about her family and her sisters and the father's brothers that all started dying and everything, until she moves on to somebody else. And then she looks right at the camera like she somehow knew that Emily would be watching this tape at some point, like almost breaking the fourth wall. Like, I don't know, like, that's kind of fucking cheesy to me, the way that they make her look at the camera. Like, she had the fucking vision to know when ahead of time, when she was getting interviewed, that Emily would be watching this interview, and that she's looking at the camera and staring at her. That doesn't work for me. That's kind of weird. And oh, I love that fish tank that she has in her house, Emily. It's a cool looking fish tank. My dad used to have a fish tank when I was young. He used to buy a whole bunch of fish, and like bouncing fucking stingrays, the ones that like would bounce on their fucking tails. Like, always loved fish tanks ever since then, ever since my childhood. So I saw that fish tank and I was like, ooh, I want that fish tank. That looks pretty nice. Just a random thing for you. And then in the elevator scene, after she grabs Lily at a group, and she's like, you're never going there again. And then for some reason, I mean, it's an obvious reason, but with her saying, why Emily, and just repeating it over and over again, every time I see this movie, it reminds me of Stewie from Family Guy with mama, mommy. Just over and over again. Like, always reminds me of that whenever I see this movie. And then just having her hallucinate that the elevator's like on a sheer drop all the way to the bottom floor. And then she's freaking the fuck out, and then it's all hallucination, and then the door opens and Lily just walks out and she's gripping the sides of the elevator. Cool stuff. And I like the whole line too with Emily and Mike talking when he gets out of church. And she's trying to explain to him that, like, I know how crazy this sounds, but I'm not crazy. Like, I'm not crazy. Like, there's something wrong here. And he says, like, just because she's a mischievous child and a deceitful child and she's been through so much doesn't mean she's a demon. And she makes the comment, like, what? Well, you believe in church and have that faith, but out here it's all bullshit. I love that line. Like, I really do. Because that is some true shit. And then Emily on the phone with Mrs. Lynch, which we hear a few times in this movie. I love when Mrs. Lynch is on the phone and she's bitching just nonstop to Emily and won't let her get a fucking word in. And then, like, all of a sudden she just can't fucking take it anymore. And she's just, shut the fuck up, you miserable, miserable woman, before I come over and beat your ass like you beat your son. Like, I have your address. Like, yeah, she's fired. Like, right then and there. Like, are you serious? The boss just comes over and says, like, well, you're in no shape mentally to be here. Like, why don't you get out of here? Yeah, no, you're fired. Are you serious? You fucking talk to a client like that, like a case that you're working on, and you fucking threaten them on the phone? Yeah, your job is done. Like, there's no way. And like I said, after this case, she doesn't want this job anyway, so it wouldn't really matter if she was fired. Then Emily puts the deadbolts on her door, just like the parents in the beginning of the movie. And I like that too. I like how she just descends into the same hell that the parents were in for 10 years. And Mr. Sullivan even says to her, it says, you've had her a few months. You had her for fucking 10 years. Like, could you imagine 10 years, a decade, dealing with all the shit that the Lily demon is putting them through and putting Emily through in this movie, dealing with that for a fucking decade? I don't know, man. Like, I might have killed myself like a long time ago. Like, if I was the father or mother, like, I wouldn't be dealing with that. Seriously. Like, you're a slave. Like, you are an absolute slave to this demon child. And you got to do everything it wants, or it's going to fucking kill you. And everyone you love and care about. Yeah, I wouldn't be able to deal with that. Like, there's no way. And the hallucination when she, like, this is why I said earlier that even if you set up your whole room and protect it like it's Fort Knox, it doesn't matter, because she's in the bedroom, and just the fact that you're holding a knife to protect yourself from a 10-year-old child, and yeah, she knows by now it's not a fucking real child, it's a demon, but still, just to find yourself in the situation in your life that you're holding a big ass kitchen knife behind your door, dead bolted shut, from a child, is just crazy to me. Like, crazy to think about. Like, even if she wasn't a demon and she was just an evil child, like Esther from fucking Orphan, which coincidentally both came out in the same year. So we had two evil, creepy child movies come out in the same year, and Orphan is much, much more superior to this film for me. I adore Orphan. But like I said, I enjoy this movie. Like, I know a lot of people who don't. So it's very mixed. And this has a pretty low rating on IMDb. Like, I forget what it was, but it definitely deserves to be a little higher. Like, absolutely. Like, it's definitely way too low. for the quality of this movie. And like I said, like it's not a great movie by any means. It's not a bad movie at all. It's just a good, enjoyable watch every time I watch it. And it's directed well. It's shot well. It looks very nice. Like the cinematography's good. All of it. And my camera keeps stuttering for some reason, but again, it's Lily the demon fucking with my technology here. So stop it, Lily. Stop fucking with my camera and my video. That's all it takes, I guess. Just fucking scream at them and the demons stop doing their shit. Then, yeah, but it doesn't help being in the room because then you get the hallucination of that's the mother, right? That's Mrs. Sullivan, like that looks all burnt up because she was having the hallucinations in the asylum that she was being burnt alive. That's her, right? Like, you can't really tell with all the makeup and stuff. But I'm pretty sure that's her. And it chases her out of the room and chases Emily to the bus. And she gets into the bus and the bus driver's just like, there's nobody out there. Like, this woman seems insane. Like, everybody she comes across. And I like Lily's little line of, like, you have to do what I want. Like, if I want a new dress, you got to do it. If I want ice cream every day after school, you got to do it. And just like laying down the ground rules, the demon ground rules of life with Lily the demon and what the fuck you have to do and you are my slave, basically. And I like how she throws Emily's line back in her face that this is your new beginning. Like Emily says to her at the beginning when she first gets custody of her. Cute little callback from that scene earlier. And then seeing the picture of the foster family, like after Emily goes to, I don't even know who it is, I guess in charge of placing the children and stuff into foster families, and she wants to expedite the process, and she's like Emily, this like is not my top priority. Like you went to bat for this, like you petitioned for custody, like make it work. like you teach all these parents all the time, like just make it work. And then she finally finds a family for Lily, and just the fact of Emily looking at the picture. And you can see, like, right before that she's fucking excited, man. Like, she's so happy that she, oh shit, I'm getting this girl out of my life. Thank Christ. And then she looks at the picture and she sees a happy family there. And then she just thinks about, like, I can't put somebody else through this. Like, I can't put another family through this. I can't just pass this demon child over to this kind family that's looking to adopt a kid. Then she has the whole conversation again with Mr. Sullivan and just him saying that you have to kill her and you have to kill her in her sleep and that she rarely sleeps and the only time she slept was the night that you broke our door down and ruined our plans of sending her to hell. Cool stuff. Then I like how Miss Sullivan's cell that she's in turns into the oven that they put Lily in their house in the beginning. And she starts burning alive in her hallucination and everything. So we assume that, I guess, she's just going to keep on thinking that she's on fire for the rest of her life, I guess. Because then Mr. Sullivan ends up dying in the cafeteria because he ends up stabbing the inmate who's cutting the peas in half, just like Lily does. And he thinks that it's Lily or that she's fucking with his mind like she is, and stabs him in the neck with the fork. Then they're trying to restrain him and he falls and impales the fork into his eye and he's dead. But we never see the mom die. So I'm guessing that, and that's gotta be fucking the worst, man. Living the rest of your life in an asylum, in a fucking room, thinking that you're on fire and burning alive for the rest of your life. That is some sort of hell, man. Like, that is fucked up to fucking put somebody through. Even for a demon. Like, that is absolutely fucked. Then we find out that Lily made the call to Doug from Emily's cell phone and not the house phone. And then that whole phone call that Mike plays for her of Lily's phone call to Doug, some creepy shit. Just with her voice distorting and sounding all demonic, and then just saying, who is this? And it's just a little girl up past her bedtime. Like, I can't say enough about her performance in this as Lily. Like, she does a great job. Like I said, with just being able to play an adorable child at the beginning and when she needs to, and then just playing this creepy as shit demonic entity that's in the form of a 10-year-old kid. She does a great job in this. Like, can't praise her enough. Then we get earlier in the movie when they're at Diego's house after he kills his parents, and Mike gets startled from the dog that jumps at the glass door behind him, and he says, "Oh, it's man's best friend." So we know has a fear of dogs. And then he gets the call from Lily, and he says he's going to help Emily kill her. And I love that scene. Like when he's walking through the parking garage and he's hearing dogs all around him, and then he gets in his car and there's a fucking Rottweiler or whatever dog that is, some vicious fucking dog in the back seat, and he doesn't hesitate at all, man. Like, this guy must be so deathly afraid of dogs that he would rather just shoot himself blow his fucking head off than be mauled to death and eaten by a dog. Like, he doesn't hesitate at all. As soon as he sees the dog in the back of that car, man, he just cocks his fucking gun and just blows his fucking brains out. Like, he is deathly afraid of dogs, man. And then, apparently demons love hip-hop. Just another thing for you. Like, she turns on the TV and MTV or whatever it is, music video, and she's listening to rap music. So apparently some demons are into rap and hip hop. Then the whole scene in Emily's bedroom is my favorite scene in the movie. Like when she's breaking down the door and just the way the door like bulges out. Then she starts breaking the fucking deadbolts start coming off, and the screws are shooting out of it, and then the whole door just gets ripped off the hinges, and she's walking and talking in the demonic voice, and then Emily's under the bed, and then she just gets down like right under the bed near her, and she's like, "What are you doing down there?" and acting all innocent, and she's like, "Do you want me to come in there and get you?" And she's terrified, Emily, and she's like, "I'm gonna count to 3," and she starts counting and stuff, and then the way she just like crawls, like it's almost like she slithers like towards her. That's creepy as fuck. Like that's the creepiest thing in this movie for me. Like, I love that whole scene. Absolutely cool stuff. Probably the most depressing thing in this movie is burning your house down and all of your possessions, trying to kill this kid and this demon for nothing. Like, for nothing. Like, she burns the house down, her house, with all of her possessions inside, thinking that that's going to solve this whole problem and she's going to finally be rid of this demon Lily. Then Lily's just outside. And you can see it in her face. And she, really good performance in that scene. Like, portraying her emotions. Of just staring at her house burning down. And just, you could see it on her face. Like, it's like, I just gave up everything of mine. And this fucking bitch is still here. Like I'm still not rid of this fucking evil child. Like, great stuff. That is some depressing shit. To imagine you gotta burn your entire house down and everything you hold dear to you, thinking that, you know, you're weighing the fucking pros and cons, getting rid of this demonic child. That outbeats any personal possessions and stuff like that, material objects. But to find out that you just did all that for no reason and that she's still there, that's depressing as fuck. Like, that's fucking terrible. Then she has the whole ending with the driving, and she gets in her mind and makes her hallucinate that she's a kid again and that her mom's driving the car, and the whole thing with, you know, just don't be afraid and she can't hurt you, and just saying this is not real, and they pass through the truck, and then I don't know, like, that's all fucking a little silly. Like, you see that in a whole lot of movies, and even in It, and like I mentioned earlier, which is he knows your fears, and just conquer your fears and don't be afraid, and it can't hurt you. I don't know. That's always been a little silly to me, that whole idea. Then crashes into the harbor, and this is one of the only times too with the CGI, when she's like full on demon, and they're underwater, submerged in the car, and Emily's trying to lock the demon in the trunk of the car, and just like the huge CGI demon arms coming out. I don't know, but like I said, like, these types of movies, it doesn't really bother me that much. It doesn't look terrible, it doesn't look bad. Then demons can just drown to death, apparently, right? So you ever get, somebody possessed by a demon, or you're haunted by a demon, and it takes a physical form, just drown the bitch. That's it. Like, it seems like that's it. That's all it takes. So, I mean, I guess it's just because Lily's the vessel for this demon. So by killing Lily and her drowning, it takes the demon out with her. That's what I gather from it. But yeah, you can just drown demons, and they love hip hop. That's what I learned from demons from watching this movie on this rewatch. And apparently there was an alternate ending to this that I never saw, but pretty much plays out most of the same way. But it's like she crashes into the water, then some guy jumps in and rescues Lily, then comes back into the water and rescues Emily. Then Emily gets taken to an insane asylum, basically, for schizophrenia that she's diagnosed with the whole story that I guess that she has to tell about Lily and everything and what she's been going through. Then Lily ends up getting put up for, not adoption, but like sent to another foster home to start everything all over again. I feel like that would be a better ending. I don't know. I'll check that out on YouTube just to see how it's shot and everything, and see how it actually plays out. But just reading about it, like I was reading up on IMDb, when I saw the score of it, I said, really, it's that low? Then seeing that there was a deleted scene, an alternate ending on the DVD version of this, I said, I never saw that, so I should check that out. But that's Case 39. Ashley, I did this for you since you mentioned it, my little sis, which I've mentioned once or twice in the past that she'll be a guest on here every now and then, because she absolutely loves American Psycho. It was like one of her favorite movies, so I've been putting that movie off for her, so me and her can watch that and do a video on it. And probably American Psycho 2, because she's never seen the second one, which is not that great, but it's alright. So just to have her check it out for the first time. So we'll probably do the 2 American Psycho movies whenever she gets a chance. So Ash, love you. Thanks for all the support, as always. And I will have another video up. What time is it? 12:37? Yeah, I'll have another one up in a few hours. But all right, guys. Hope everyone's having a good day, night, wherever you're from, and I will talk to you soon.